New business, Arsenal's approach for Suarez. Headliners, we ask who's next in at Chelsea. And in added time, we put your questions to our panel. Joining me today are ex-Liverpool and England striker Emile Heskey and goal correspondent Greg Stobart. I'm Matt Lorenzo and this is Transfer Talk. So let's take a look at the new business. Fresh rumours, fresh exclusive, fresh stories. One concerning Suarez leaving Liverpool and maybe going to Arsenal.
Yeah, there was a fresh twist in the Suarez saga last week. Arsenal registered their interest. They followed it up with a £30 million bid. Liverpool rejected it immediately. It's nowhere near enough for them. But it begs the question, we all thought Suarez was going to Real Madrid, but could he be heading down to London?
I think Suarez himself is probably looking to leave England. He wants out after all the sagas that he's had. He obviously wants to go to Spain, and he's made it clear that he would love to go to Real Madrid. Liverpool are in a commanding position. They don't need to sell him, but do you really want to keep a player that doesn't want to play anymore? So they're in a situation where they'll have to sell him eventually, but they'll hold out for the best bid.
I think he's been more trouble than he's worth, to be honest, and I think it makes perfect sense for Arsenal, the kind of player they need. And for all his talk about wanting to leave England and blaming the press, he wants to play in the Champions League, and Arsenal would be a step up for him at this stage in his career. And Arsenal have the money to combine him with Higuain, who they're looking to sign from Real Madrid. So there's a really interesting merry-go-round there, because of course Real Madrid are going for Suarez, so are Arsenal, and Arsenal are also trying to buy Higuain from Real Madrid.
He comes with a certain amount of baggage though, doesn't he? I mean, won't clubs be put off by that?
Well, for a start, he'd start with the 6 games less of his ban for biting Ivanovic if he went to Arsenal. Personally, I don't think he'll end up there. I think Arsenal will get Higuain and then they'll reassess, and I think Suarez will eventually end up at Real Madrid. Let's
move on to Wayne Rooney, and will he, won't he leave Manchester United? Depends who you ask, really. But Mike Phelan, since being removed from the backroom staff, has been a little more vocal than he used to be. He says he's probably looking for a new challenge.
Yeah, every player obviously comes along and says they want a new challenge, but Moyes has stamped his authority and said that he's not going anywhere. I think Wayne is a very professional lad, and he will, regardless of whether he stays or go, he will give his best because he loves football so much. But he's obviously made it, put in a transfer request as such and said that he wants to leave.
I think there's a lot more to go with this story. I think David Moyes was very impressive with it in his first press conference last week. He said Wayne Rooney's going nowhere. It's a real power game already. It's his first real challenge, Moyes, after stepping into Sir Alex Ferguson's shoes. He was very impressive, but he refused to say whether Rooney wanted to be at Man United or not. And really, you don't ask to leave Man United twice, and Rooney's done that already. He wants a new challenge, he wants to leave. I think Chelsea would be the right challenge for him, the right move for him, but there's a real power game. I think this could really run on until the end of August.
Learning Spanish would be a challenge too far, surely.
I can't see Barcelona as an option, to be honest. I mean, Piqué used to play with him. He's probably being nice about his teammate last week when he said that Rooney would be welcome at Barcelona. I think he's looking at staying in the Premier League and move to London and to get out of Man United because he doesn't feel appreciated there, and he's not the main man there anymore anyway, because they've got Robin van Persie, who won them the title essentially last season.
One man who's happy to stay in Spain, David Villa, not going to Spurs as we all thought this time last week.
Yeah, he's been on the radar for a couple of English teams, but has decided to stay in Spain with Atletico Madrid. Price tag's a little bit lower than I thought it would be, but he's been a great footballer, a great goal scorer. No one knew how he would do when he come back from his broken leg, but he's proven that he's still got the touch, and he's gone to Atletico.
There are a few questions over whether he's lost that little 10%, that little bit of sharpness in front of goal, but it's still excellent business for Atletico Madrid. £4.4 million for Spain's all-time top scorer, and they've got the money. They were looking to replace Falcao. They're in the Champions League. You can understand why he's done it, especially in a World Cup year, but it's a massive blow for Spurs, because Andre Villas-Boas made David Villa his top target. He was desperate for him, and Spurs really need a striker. Where do they turn to now? They're going to have to spend big money.
Well, that wraps up our new business section. We'll move straight on to the headliners. One of the big headlines of the close season, when it happens, will be Mourinho's major signing, or first major signing, and it looks as though he's looking to Aston Villa.
Yeah, you know, Benteke's handed in a transfer request, so that's going to be very interesting. He's a young lad who ended up 4th on the goal scoring chart, so he's had a great season. And everyone's comparing him to Drogba, so you don't know if there's a little comparison there.
I think it's way too early to compare Benteke to Drogba. He could be Michael Ricketts for all we know. He's had one season, he scored 23 goals, he looks very impressive, but for the money you're talking, which Villa have said they'll listen to offers, but it's 20 million plus, the money you're talking, it'd be a huge, huge gamble after just 1 year to do that with Benteke, especially for Chelsea, because they need a world-class striker.
No pressure on him, really, and you must remember that. When you went to Liverpool, you were just 22. You'll know exactly how he's feeling. Yeah,
definitely. You know, we were pretty much the same shoes then, you know, but I'd actually played a few more seasons. But, you know, it's going to be difficult for him, whoever he goes to, you know, like you're saying, with only one season under your belt within the best league in the world. Can you cope with it season after season? And that only time will tell.
Chelsea are looking at him, but is there a massive difference between Benteke and someone like Lukaku? What they really need is a player like Cavani, a player who's done it for 4 or 5 years and scored 20 plus goals a season. I can see why Mourinho would be interested in Benteke, but I don't think it makes sense to me. Maybe Spurs or Arsenal would make a little bit more sense, but Spurs don't have a lot of luck with expensive signings that start with Bent in their name.
You mentioned Cavani. He appears to be on his way to PSG for super money. I mean, has Mourinho lost out in the battle of the wallets?
It looks like it. I mean, Cavani would prefer to go to Chelsea. He wants to come to the Premier League. Man City showed a lot of interest before. It was quite a long way down the line with Chelsea, but PSG money talked. We saw it with Falcao, who turned down Chelsea and ended up at Monaco. I think the big issue is the transfer fee, 63 million euros. Chelsea just aren't willing to pay that, especially with financial fair play. That could be the kicker, and he'll earn an absolute fortune there. Team up with former teammates like Lavezzi or Ibrahimovic. They've got a very good squad there, very exciting. I think he'll end up at PSG, but Chelsea will keep sticking in there, I think.
It's the talk of the terraces. Is he worth the money? But would you say Cavani is?
To a buyout clause, probably not, because it's a lot. You know, Chelsea obviously looking at they with the financial fair play and everything. You know, you got to balance the books, and they're probably looking at it and saying they could go as high as 40, 42, 43. When you're going over that, you're looking it's very high, and then obviously PSG have just come out and said, "I will take him," but then obviously money talks. So,
I mean, it's the hardest thing, as Emil knows, it's the hardest thing to do to find a goal scorer who scored 25 goals a season. He is a class act, and he's proven it in Serie A, and what we've got is 4 or 5 clubs looking at the same 4 or 5 strikers this summer, so it's really interesting. But I saw Cavani at the Confederations Cup, and he's a very classy customer, proper penalty box striker, just caresses the ball into the bottom corner. He's there on the spot every time. He's guaranteed goals if Chelsea want to pay the money, but it's whether they can make the finances work and whether they can outmuscle PSG, which they probably can't.
If only I'd had a buyout clause. And with that, we move into added time. Well, as the clock ticks down, it's time to put some of our viewers' questions to you. And first up on Facebook, Naeem Bouyan asks, why are Chelsea just buying kids? We need a world-class striker.
Obviously, they're probably looking for the future, but the fans want right now. I'm sure they just bought Van Ginkel. But they are obviously looking at Cavani and other players as well.
I think the Chelsea theory is to have world-class players like Cavani alongside the best young players in the world, which is why they've been buying the likes of Lukaku, De Bruyne, Courtois. Let's see if they come through.
This from Nathanan123 on YouTube. If Fabregas joins Arsenal and Thiago moves to Man United, who would you bring in if you were Villanova?
Personally, they'll still have Xavi and Iniesta, so I'd go for a more powerful box-to-box physical player like Vidal from Juventus. He'd be perfect. Shame that Paulinho's just gone to Tottenham, because he'd be the kind of player Barcelona don't have.
The only one that jumps out at me was Juan Mata. You know, I think he'd been mentioned before, didn't he? So that was the only one that really jumped out at me.
Stuart Bramble tweets, what's the latest on Wanyama? Is he leaving Celtic?
Southampton have made another move for Wanyama, about £12 million, but I don't think he's interested. He's already turned them down once. He'll be holding out for a move to Everton or Liverpool because they're both interested.
They're obviously more attractive moves for him, having come from Celtic, who's a massive club at the end of the day. So I think he'd be looking to hold out for them.
Well, that's it for today. If you like our video, press the subscribe button. And if you want to ask a question, use YouTube, Twitter or Facebook. And if you want to know more on any of the stories we've discussed, then head on over to Goal.